All right, let's make some patch panels. You might can see a little change from the last video. It kind of looks where it might have been a little rusty in there. Now it's dark black, and that's because I sprayed some rust converter, which kind of turns the oxidized metal into something you can paint on top of. This is all minor stuff. It was, like I said before, it was really clean inside of here once I cut this piece out that was quite rusty. So there was about 17 pounds of dirt and sand and junk down in the rocker arms, or rockers all the way back down in there. So I was able to run a shop vac tube down in there, and so we got a few pounds off the weight of the car. So what we're gonna do now is, this is the old piece. You can kind of see where it fit right in there, and I've cut it out, and there was a hole that was stamped in the original panel. I'm not gonna bother trying to remake that hole. I don't need it, doesn't need to have access to it, just make it too hard. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this piece right here, go lay it out on some clean 16 gauge. I did verify this is about 16 gauge metal. And we're gonna try to do this little jog in the front here, and we're just gonna completely plate over that hole in the back. All right, here's the original template. I took a hammer and on the back of the vise, and I kind of beat it a little flatter on one side so it would lay down nice so I could trace around it. Normally if I'm making a piece or something like that, I'd use the tip of an auto punch or something to scribe it, but I went ahead and just used this Sharpie, because when I cut, I had the blade width, the kerf of the blade cutting this panel, and so this panel actually needs to be slightly larger to make the gaps be nice and tight. And because I'm going to TIG this back together, I want those gaps to be tight. So I basically just used the Sharpie to give me a little bit of a kerf, and I'm going to cut on the outside of this blue line, and then if it's a little big, that's fine. I'll just work it down with a flap wheel, try to get it as close to I can. The less metal I have to fill with a TIG, the better. Quick tip, if you're going to be doing some metal work and you got your soda open or your beer or whatever open, one of the tops off of a can of argon fits right over there nicely and keeps all the dust and metal crap from getting in your can. So there's your tip of the day. And here's the completed patch panel in the car. You can see I've got the profile here, across here, and what I did here, I was going to fill this whole gap, but this has been bead rolled, and by the time I either profiled it to fit or took some pliers and bent that out, it was just going to be more hassle than it was worth. So what I did is I went ahead and just cut right across here. Everything fits in. It's real nice and flush. It sits there by itself, so it's pretty close. So I'm going to go ahead and get cleaned up and get ready to tack this in. All right, we're all ready to start welding it in. I got the panel here. I put some weld-through primer on the back side of it because it won't be able to get to it when it's welded in there. I cleaned it all down with acetone, cleaned the edge around with acetone. I mean, this metal has got some rust embedded in it, so we just do our best to try to get it as clean as possible. The panel's holding itself in, but I just put these stitch weld magnets in there just to kind of give it a little extra support, at least till it gets tacked in. I got a line here for a separate bottle of argon that I'm back purging into the rocker. Does it matter? You're never going to see it. Is it really that big of a deal? Nah, I'll know it's there. So, plus I just got my new back purge set up, so I want to give it a try. So that's going in there, and it's going to turn it on and fill up the rocker. Just using a number 8 gas lens, try to help make up for my mediocre welding. And then because I'm kind of down here on the floor, I got the pedal in between my knees here. So I'll just use that to regulate, and we'll see what we can do. I had to reassess a little bit. You might have seen from the time lapse, but the first few tacks were terrible. They were just horrible. And I had to go and try to weld something else to see if it was the metal or the setup or what. But it turns out, I think it was the back purge. I think the back purge was kind of pushing some of the fumes from the paint and such from inside the weld out into the weld, and it was contaminating the weld. So I've abandoned the back purge, and we're just gonna do it the old-fashioned way. Okay, well, I went ahead and cut off the time lapse early. I was going to try to time lapse the whole weld, but things just fell to pieces, and I had to shut it off for for those of you with more delicate sensibilities. I didn't want anybody to faint watching what was going on here. Basically, I am a mediocre welder at best, and I set myself up in a bad situation. I'm in an awkward position down here on the floor, trying to regulate the pedal with my knees. The metal's not the best quality because of all the rust in there, and man, I was dipping more than a crew chief on a flight line, I have to tell you. So you can tell that I was really struggling, because I even moved my bench grinder out here on the floor that's in the shop normally right next to me, so I could just pop the tungsten out, turn around, regrind it, and stick it back in there and keep going. So after several attempts to kind of weld around there, and actually had to step away last night, take a breath, come back out, and start again with some fresh eyes. And I finally got it to where it's not pretty, but passable. So you can kind of see this is where the panel was. This may look suspicious. It is a last ditch desperate attempt. What happened is, right in here, the panel actually gets quite wavy, and there's some proud areas here. And when I'm trying to profile down this, the welds, the pour welds, what was happening is the metal that I was welding to was getting too thin. And so I was having issues with blowing through, and instead of trying to, stitch weld together, basically aluminum cans, thickness of metal, which wouldn't have been very sturdy anyways. I went and got another piece of metal and made a patch and just covered it up and then welded around the outside. It's not factory, obviously. It is structurally better than trying to weld with that thin stuff. And in fact, there's quite a high spot right here. And so I think this is going to actually help me with my level when I bring that piece down here. Anyways, not what I wanted to do. Certainly don't use this as training for how to weld yourself, but I just wanted to, give you the blow by blow. It did not turn out well. So I'm sure somebody who's a better welder could do a better job than me, but in this situation, it just wasn't my day.